College football fans, welcome back. Black and gold fans, welcome back as well to the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. This is my instant reaction and recap to Iowa's 26-16 win last night inside Kinnick Stadium over the visiting Michigan State Spartans. With the victory, Iowa improves to 4-1 overall, 1-1 in Big Ten Conference play, while Michigan State falls to 2-3 overall, 0-2 in Big Ten Conference play. What is up next for these teams? Michigan State has a bye week to kind of recalculate before they travel to Piscataway to take on Rutgers. Iowa this weekend hosts Purdue. It's homecoming weekend in Iowa City. And as they keep trying to rebuild and work out the kinks, especially offensively. Now, welcome back to all of you. If this is your first time on the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog, I really appreciate you being here. Please click, like, share, subscribe, comment. I love doing these instant reaction and recap episodes. But remember, you, the college football fans, are the ones who drive these episodes. Please feel free. Let your voice be heard. Comment. I want to hear from you, Iowa fans, Michigan State fans, all of you college football fans. Let me know what you thought about the game. Do you agree or disagree with my commentary, my analysis, my opinion? Please feel free to get involved, and let's continue to help the channel grow, and let's find more college football fans just like you. Now, my opening thoughts and comments about this game, and I will expand on them here shortly, is very early on in this game, the dynamic completely changed for Iowa, not just for the game, but probably for the entire rest of the season, as Cade McNamara went down with injury midway through the first quarter. On Iowa's second possession, it was 3-0 at that time. I'll get to that here in a little bit. Next initial thought is hats off and a tip of the cap to Michigan State. I mean, a team that is going through so much turmoil. They showed up, showed out. They put on a very good showing. Sparty fans, you should be proud of your program. Definitely put up a good showing on national television. With everything going on within their program, they definitely came in, played hard, and never quit and left everything on the field, and I'll expand on that here also. Next thing is coaching. I mean, this is something that's got to be mentioned. I've got to comment on this, but really specifically towards the Michigan State coaching staff, both some really good and ugly. There's no bad here. It's just good and ugly, so stay tuned for that. And then I've got to say this as well. I mean, for Iowa, live, laugh, punt. So that's my initial thoughts on this game. So let me expand on those before I go ahead and share with you the good and the bad that I saw from each team. Now, Cade McNamara, it's one of those things as a Hawkeye fan, you could tell this cat really was struggling anyway. He never really found his footing running the offense. I mean, he spent a lot of last season recovering after a knee surgery at Michigan, which is basically why he did transfer to Iowa. I'm not a doctor. I don't know officially what the injury extent is, but I've watched plenty of football in my time. Pretty safe assumption. It looked like it was a knee issue, non-contact while he was scrambling upfield. If that's the case, he's probably going to be shelved for the rest of the year. And it's really a shame that he never really seemed like he had enough reps to really, get in tune with his receivers, the offensive line. And it's one of those kind of conundrums that it's tough to say that we miss something we never had. And that's really because for Iowa fans, it never seemed like Cade McNamara was fully ready to go. But I hope the recovery, I hope it's not as bad as what it looked last night, the injury. And we do look to having him back next year, fully healthy. Hopefully they don't rush him back. He has time to do more reps, learn the playbook, and just build a little bit more continuity with the offense. Next thing I want to talk about is Michigan State. Wow. And I will get to Deacon Hill, the quarterback, who then was thrown into the game for Iowa. But Michigan State, really good showing. I mean, like I said, they never gave up. They were tough. And we all know, if you're a Big Ten fan, you know that inside Kinnick Stadium for a night game, one of the toughest environments, not just in our league, but in the entire country. It just is. It's where top 10 teams go to die during night games at Kinnick. But everything going on in this program. I mean, Mel Tucker officially fired earlier this week after a 2-week suspension without pay due to the scandal going on, the sexual harassment issues, doing very unsavory things over the phone. So they lose their head coach in the offseason, late in the transfer window, the transfer portal window. They lose their two best offensive weapons. Peyton Thorne, quarterback, transfers to Auburn, and Keon Coleman is having an absolute All-American type season so far at Florida State. So those are tough losses. They continue to really struggle in the defensive secondary, does Michigan State, and just really a rebuild going on there in East Lansing. But still, they gave Iowa everything they could handle and more. I mean, it was a very good showing, very impressed. I think they'll only get better. But the line coming in, Iowa was favored by 11 points. They did win by 10, but it was something that seemed to be a lot closer than that. It's one of those final scores where the scoreboard kind of lies. It should have been a little bit of a closer game than 10 points. It just came down to how the teams played. And one team just played a little bit cleaner. That's what it came down to. Now, coaching. All right, I'm going to expand on this, what I said. I love the offensive play calling that Michigan State OC had, what their game plan was to kind of neutralize this Iowa defensive line and to kind of, let's not play with fire, Scarecrow, too much against the Iowa defensive secondary. It was a very good plan of action. And I think teams now can see where Iowa is weakest at defensively, okay? And that's really at the mid-level. Penn State did this 2 weeks ago. Michigan State did last night. Is teams right now, as far as attacking Iowa, it's really, they're soft there at that linebacker level. Teams keep on doing what they can, taking what the defense is giving them, checking down to the flat, quick little outs, drag routes across the middle of the field. These guys are just running wide open, all right? And I think that's something the Iowa defense definitely has to strap it up, and they have to make some adjustments. I mean, teams are really just taking the underneath time and time again. It's been there all season. I think teams are going to see that, like I said, on tape. So it was a great offensive game plan. I mean, it was a great plan of action. It kept them in the game. But when they tried to take a couple of shots down the field, the defensive secondary for Iowa was game. They were ready. They were ready to do what they had to do. Now, coaching, the ugly side of this, okay? And if you're a Michigan State fan, I really, really please want to hear from you on the channel. I always ask for and welcome any sort of involvement. As I said in the opening, please comment. But I need Michigan State fans to help me understand what we saw happen at the 9:40 mark in the third quarter. At that time, Michigan State was up 16-10. It's a 4th and 1, okay, at the Michigan State at their own 30-yard line, and they go for it and get stopped, all right? I have no idea why this happened. And to me, this was the play of the game. I know ultimately most people would disagree with me. That's fine, and say it was the punt return touchdown by Cooper DeJean that eventually gave Iowa the lead late. But when Michigan State went for it, okay, and was stopped, they had all the momentum. It was 9:40 left in the third quarter. I mean, Iowa got the ball deep in Michigan State territory. Granted, only got a field goal, but to me, that was the play of the game. And I've seen this way too much this season across the college football landscape, because I watch a lot of football, is these coaches keep trying to invent the wheel. And it's not making any sense. None whatsoever. Okay? As a coach, myself, I am a coach. I coach basketball and softball. Granted, I'm never going to be in the Hall of Fame. I think I'm okay at it. But as a coach, your job is to educate and put your players in the best position for success. And the Michigan State interim coach making that decision to go for it at their own 30-yard line with the lead, basically with an entire half to go, that can't be accepted. I mean, that is something Michigan State fans right now should be completely up in arms with this. I mean, if I'm the Michigan State AD, I'm calling down to the sidelines after that and saying, you know what, Mr. Interim Coach, you're in a tough spot. We get it, but don't even attempt to try to get on the team bus after the game. You are released, you're fired, you're canned, whatever. I have no idea why that happened. And that completely changed the complexity of this game. It's so unacceptable. I can't even, and I'm trying to fathom from any standpoint why that would be called. I can't justify it in any way. I need to hear it from Michigan State fans. Please comment, subscribe. I want to hear from you about that play call, because to me, I think that was the play of the game. You punt it, you've got Iowa, an offense that is struggling a little bit. Just keep doing what you're doing. I cannot understand that. And at that point, I'm really surprised that Coach Mark D'Antonio, who I don't think should be on the sideline anyway, but it seems like he's basically coaching this team anyway, it seems like to me. I wasn't surprised that he just didn't go over there and just rip the headset off the interim coach and say, you know what, why don't you go ahead and sit this one out, I got it. So please, I want to hear from you. And the last thing I said about live, laugh, punt, I'm referring to College Game Day. And it was a great atmosphere. The first time ever Game Day goes to Duke. I love watching the morning to see really the signs. And there were some classics on display. And I loved one that was poking fun at the current status of the Iowa offense, to where not live, laugh, love, but live, laugh, punt. So it was classic. It was entertaining to see that. I got a pretty good chuckle and a good laugh out of seeing that sign there at Durham for College Game Day. Now, the good that I saw about this, I always like to start with the good. I'm going to go ahead and start with Deacon Hill. Now, Deacon Hill was the quarterback who was then pressed into play when Cade McNamara went down. And you can't be too overly critical of him, because this is going to kind of be good and bad, but it looked like the guy seemed like he was comfortable. Maybe he was keeping that really internally, but he didn't seem to look nervous or lost, and he definitely kept his head in the game. I mean, when he came in, like I said, midway through the first quarter, it's a 3-0 game, but in actuality, it's really 0-0. It's like the game is just starting, and he made some mistakes. Iowa ended up having 2 turnovers. He did throw 2 interceptions. Actually, no, there was 1 interception that he threw. 2 turnovers for Iowa, which I'll get to here in a little bit. But he definitely kept them in the game. He looked comfortable enough, and he did do what he could to get his teammates involved. So, and this is a guy that has got some first-string reps. During fall camp, when Cade went down with the quad injury, he did have a couple weeks of reps with the first team. I definitely think during this week, he'll get more. I expect a little bit of growth, but he did the best that he could. And also take into account that Iowa was without their number 1 and 2 running backs for this game. Again, their best receiving threat, tight end, Luke Lachey, is out for the rest of the season. Broke his ankle a couple weeks ago. So there was a lot of adversity that Iowa, too, played and finished this game with. They really persevered in this game with all of these injuries. Now, also, I said Michigan State, a little short man themselves. A lot of starters were missing on the defensive side of the ball, especially. Their best tight end left in the first quarter as well with an injury. But it really was a very satisfying game to watch. I mean, there's been way bigger victories that I've watched in my time being an Iowa fan like you, but this was one of the most satisfying victories I've seen in a while because Iowa still didn't quit. They played hard, they played cleaner than Michigan State, and they ended up doing what Iowa does. And it was. And plus, it was great to have my son, who watched basically the entire game with me. Kind of reminded me when I used to watch it with my father and my brother. So very satisfying game to watch. So Deacon Hill, the one thing I will say about him, a couple things, couple criticisms, but I can't be too overly critical of him. I mean, being pressed into the starting role, definitely was making a few too many pre-snap reads. And he definitely, you could tell, just staring down his targets as far as receivers. He's got to learn to go through his progressions a little bit more and not give it away and move those eyes and that head around. That's the only thing that I would say, okay, is just, don't lock in too early. Don't make your decision too early. And the other thing, too, the guy's got a fastball. He's got a cannon of an arm, but there were some of those mid to intermediate range throws that were Brett Favre-like that ended up being drops. So he's got to take a little bit of pep off that ball. Other than that, not bad. And I love, too, how this cat is able to actually roll the pocket, and he looks really good on the rollout on the bootleg. All right, so I really liked what I saw there. All right. The good for Michigan State, I mean, just a real team effort. I mean, especially, I love the battle of the punters. Okay, I love that because, I'm an Iowa fan. We love special teams. That just back and forth between Eckley, I believe his name is, punting. Yep, Ryan Eckley and Tory Taylor, the punter from down under. 6 punts for Ryan Eckley, averaging 48.8 yards a kick with a long of 67. Woo! And then Tory Taylor, 7 punts, a long of 60, averaging 48.9. So I loved the battle of the kickers. And it's funny, if you were watching this game, which you probably were since you're watching this episode, is other than, of course, at the late in the fourth quarter with that punt return, that was the loudest cheer and hoorah all night at Kinnick Stadium. But it was funny up until that point. The most consistent cheering is when Tory Taylor would get out there and punt for Iowa. I loved it. It's great. I mean, Tory Taylor for Heisman. So special teams for Michigan State, 3 of 4 kicking field goals, along of the Jonathan Kim, along of 58. That made it 10-9 at halftime, basically as the first half ended. So really good special teams play all around. But that, to me, is really what was the difference for this game. I mean, when I give you these stats, is this not the most Iowa-like victory? They forced 4 turnovers, 4 for 4 on field goals, and a punt return. That screams Iowa victory right there. You look that up in Webster's dictionary, that's what it's going to say about keys to an Iowa Hawkeye victory. Stats like that. All right. Now, the other good I'll say about what I saw for both teams, just a really defensive struggle at times. I mean, I really liked, it was such a good game to watch. It was so well balanced, all right? And I think this victory is going to go a long way for Iowa. I really think that. Now, the bad for each team, obviously way too many turnovers, really for both teams. Michigan State ended up turning it over 4 times, including 3 interceptions thrown by Noah Kim, their quarterback. Young man who is struggling. I know he's under a lot of fire by Michigan State fans and media, but tough situation. I think they will only get better. Iowa did have 2 turnovers. They had a fumble, which was a scoop and score for 6 points by the Michigan State defense. And as I said, Deacon Hill did throw 1 interception. And that was really a turning point for me too. I mean, at that point, that scoop and 6 made it 16-10 early in the third quarter for Michigan State, taking their first lead of the game. And that's when you thought maybe Iowa was really in trouble, but still they kept their heads in the game and just executed better than Michigan State down the stretch. Penalties, I believe Michigan State had 10 penalties, which that's a lot of penalties. I mean, that's not going to help your cause on the road against a team that's better than you in a hostile environment. Let's see here. It was, let me look here at team stats. I believe it was 10 penalties for like 94 yards. 10 penalties, 94 yards for Michigan State, 3 penalties for 25 yards for Iowa. So Iowa won that battle as well, just playing a little bit cleaner with turnovers and penalties. Just a little bit more execution for the Hawkeyes. But when you look at the stats, it's really one-sided. And I'm looking at these right now, and it's almost like you look at them without seeing the team, and it's one of those that tells you, well, Team A had to win. And Team A, in this case, was Michigan State. First downs, 20-15. Third down efficiencies, they were 3 of 15. Iowa, 2 of 13 on third down. Total yards for Michigan State, 349 to Iowa's 222. Time of possession, that favored Michigan State as well. 33 minutes and change to Iowa's 26 and change. It just came down to, once again, the execution, special teams, penalties, and turnovers. That's all I can really gather out of looking at those stats and then watching it with my naked eyes. Another bad thing, I've got to say this about the Hawkeyes is, we heard a lot about having to get the Iowa wide receiving core more involved, and I agree with that, going back to even the last 2 previous seasons. And last week, I think they had 1 reception, did the Iowa wide receivers. And Deacon Hill, he definitely got the Iowa receiving core way more involved. They had more catches, but 6 dropped passes, all right? Now, who am I to judge? I mean, look at me. I'm 42 years old. I mean, could I get out there and catch some of those? No. Even in my prime, probably not. And of those 6 drops, 2 were, as I said, maybe on Deacon Hill a little bit, pretty close, only about 10, 15 yards away, and just rifled it. But to me, when wide receivers can get 2 hands on a ball, they should catch it. So maybe 2 of those, and 1 was a little bit high to Deontay Vines, who really had a night to forget. I mean, just drop after drop for that young man. But if you get 2 hands on it, you should be able to bring it in. But there were 4 that were absolutely on the Iowa wide receiving core, just completely dropped it, hitting them in the hands or right in the chest. They have got to be able to bring that ball in. Now, maybe it's because they're just not familiar with catching the ball in a game time atmosphere or a game time moment. But I think a lot of that is also because this is the first time that they're working with the timing of Deacon Hill's delivery and the speed of the ball that he's getting out. And that does take time to work with, okay? So they probably were adjusting to that as well. But they've got to be able to bring in those catches more consistently because they had their chances last night. And if they make those, I think all of those drops too were basically past the sticks, if I remember. So it probably is a little bit more of a wide open scoring game. Probably not as close, but the wide receiving core, they've got to be put on alert right now. They've got to be called out. It's got to be better than that. It just does. Okay? Especially when you have an offense like we do that's already, handcuffed, and we still are the laughingstock of college football offensively. We just are. Okay? So where do we go from here? Other than that, that's really all I have to say about this game. It was just a really big moment. I'm excited to see where Deacon Hill, how he improves, because like I said, I'm expecting Cade McNamara to be out the rest of the season. We'll have to wait and see what the doctors officially say. But it really did speak volumes. And this is what I want Hawkeye fans to take away from this, okay? Because if it's late in the game, let's say it's third quarter, fourth quarter, and let's say Iowa has a double-digit lead, 10, 13, 14, whatever. And let's say Michigan State made a legit comeback, a run, and Iowa maybe just held on for the victory. Then you could say, all right, we're lucky. Woo! That was the game we probably should have lost. I get that. And I agree that would all make us even a little bit more nervous as we already are. But as I stated, Deacon Hill took over basically with the game being 0-0, even though it was 3-0, but still with 7 minutes to go in the first quarter. And he guided them to victory. So it does say a lot. That's why it was very overly satisfying for me to watch that. It was a good feeling. They're going to have their work cut out for them. Now, as I stated, we've got Purdue this weekend. Me and my family will be in attendance. If you see me, go ahead and give me a shout out, give me a holler, come say hello. A game that Iowa should win. They are the early favorite via Vegas. And it's another good opportunity for Iowa to keep working on the offense. All right, and the defense, too, to kind of do a little bit better in coverage. And I forgot to say the pass protection, much better last night from the offensive line. But we got to get this ground attack going. But hopefully either Caleb Johnson or Jazzy Patterson, either the number 1 or number 2 running back, will be back this week. We'll have to wait and see. But it's another good opportunity this week against Purdue to right the ship, keep working out the kinks, getting better, because watching Iowa win last night and watching what's going on with the rest of the mediocre Big Ten West Division, and it's mediocre. I think it's hands down the worst division in college football, that I still can see Iowa winning this division. Even with all of these injuries, the deficiencies, I still think they can win. Now, preseason, I said they wouldn't win. I did pick Illinois officially to win the West, but they lost to Purdue yesterday. So I don't know who the hell is going to win this division. I just don't. But I still think Iowa has more than a fighter's chance to win it. But they have to improve. You've got a winnable game, and then the big showdown in 2 weeks up in Madison, in Madtown, against the Badgers. So please get involved. I want to hear from you, Michigan State fans, Iowa fans, all of you college football fans. Let me know what you thought of the game or about my analysis. Like, share, subscribe, comment. I promise I will get back to each and every one of you sooner than later. And that's about it. I'm going to go ahead and get back to the fam. Enjoy the rest of your weekend. And thanks for joining me on this episode of the Touchdown Black and Gold vlog. Click the subscribe button. I will be back tomorrow, Monday afternoon, for my Week 5 recap and review episode. And that'll cover everything that went down Week 5 across the entire college football landscape. So until then, have a good day. Study me. I'm history. See you soon. Bye-bye.